All right. I know we have a lot of other people that are going to be likely joining us, but I wanted to get started. So we start promptly at 2 o'clock and it's going to take a half an hour. So let's begin. This is Bookseller Chill with Brian Robinson, PhD. Today is the first in a 6-week series, and we'll be meeting at the same time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, each Thursday until April 30th. Each session will last approximately 30 minutes and include concepts from Brian's so helpful book, #Chill, Turn Off Your Job and Turn On Your Life. And this is the book. It's fabulous. These will be followed by what Brian calls simple, short, micro chiller meditations that will help us relax and restore during this time of great uncertainty. We set up this series with Brian, who is a longtime friend to SIVA Booksellers, because today's events are creating anxiety, which can challenge our resilience and ability to act, to make good decisions, or even sleep. This series provides tools to cope and a window of time to share with your colleagues as you experience guided meditations and counsel. Feel free to come to as few or as many sessions as you like, and please bring your staff. These sessions will be recorded for later viewing. Now I'd like to introduce Brian. Brian is a psychotherapist who has built his career on the themes of resilience, work-life balance, and well-being. His research has been featured on 2020, Good Morning America, ABC's World News Tonight, NBC Nightly News, NBC Universal, the CBS Early Show, CNBC's The Big Idea, and NPR's Marketplace. He has also hosted the PBS documentary, Overdoing It, How to Slow Down and Take Care of Yourself. He's a contributor to Forbes magazine, Psychology Today, and writes a weekly column for Thrive Global, Arianna Huffington's new company. So Brian, I'm turning it over to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Linda Marie. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I was telling Linda Marie the other day that by doing this, I'm hoping I can share some things that I personally practice and that I share with the clients that I see. But also I'm getting something back. It's called, in my profession, the helper's high. And when we help other people, it benefits us as well. So it's my pleasure to be here, and I appreciate your asking me to do this. The subtitle of the book is Turn Off Your Job and Turn On Your Life. It could just as easily have been called Turn Off Your Lizard Brain and Turn On Your Life. And I'm going to talk about the lizard brain just a little bit, because one of the things that's happening right now with the pandemic is everybody's lizard brain at one point or another is going to get switched on. And I'm going to talk in a minute about what that is. But first, I'd like for us to do a quick, what I call micro chiller. This is a term I came up with for a simple, short ways to bring ourselves into calm and relaxation, so that you don't have to take hours and hours of meditation and sit cross-legged and do lotus position and burn incense and make weird sounds and play weird music. So meditation has completely transformed in the 21st century. So the first thing I'd like for everybody to do, we're going to do this for 1 minute, is listen. I'll tell you when a minute starts, so don't start yet, but I want you just to listen and identify as many sounds as you can. These could be ambient sounds like airplane traffic, or it could be the barking dog next door. It could be your gurgling stomach, could be the heating system. So just notice as many as you can. Don't try to memorize them. This is not a trick, but just be aware of them. And we're going to do this for 1 minute. And I'm going to ask my girlfriend, because I'm so electronic, I don't have a second hand anymore. My girlfriend, Alexa, to let us know when a minute's up. Alexa, let me know when a minute is up, please.
Alarm for what time?
Let me know when 1 minute is up.
1 minute, starting now.
Starting now. Okay, thank you, Alexa. Alexa off. Okay, now what I'd like for you to do is just notice on the inside in your body, what are you aware of? And I'm just going to ask Linda Marie.
I'm much calmer.
Okay, and how do you know
Yeah, I
that?
noticed that I can just tell that my breathing slowed down, and
Okay,
I was focusing on the sounds rather than my thoughts.
that's right. So that's you. Everybody just meditated, and some of you, if you had trouble with that, don't worry about it. We're going to do many of these different micro chillers. That's just to kind of get your feet wet. It's one of the simplest there is. It's called open awareness meditation. And when we focus on any of the five senses, actually, you could take a strawberry and eat it and really pay attention to the taste of and the morsel and the bursts of the flavor in your mouth. You can do that with vision, all the blue things in the room. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Meditation is nothing but focus. That's all it is. And there are many types of meditation. So open awareness, you're focusing on something around you and using your five senses. There's transcendental meditation, which is focusing on a mantra. The type of meditation I do is using my breath. There's also guided meditations. I prefer anything I can do on my own because it's portable, it's free, I can do it anywhere. Most of them I can do in my car if I'm not driving. I can do in my office, I can do at home, wherever. So just know that all the different types that we're going to be talking about, the micro chillers, you can do pretty much anywhere and do them with 5 minutes or less. Now, the importance of the 5 minutes, if you've never meditated before, is that it shows you that you can get through it. If one of the biggest mistakes people make with meditation is saying, okay, I'm going to sit down and meditate for 20 minutes. And if you've never done that before, it's close to impossible to do. Because first of all, most people don't want to do it. 20 minutes sounds too long. So you break it down in very small steps, and anybody can do 5 minutes or 40 minutes in one day. If you commit to doing 5 minutes, you still have 14:35 to do whatever you need to do. So meditating for 5 minutes, more if you want to, but a minimum of 5 minutes a day, and using some of these micro chillers is what I would challenge you to do. It's something I do. I meditate every day for 5 minutes, sometimes more, because once I meditate for 5 minutes, I don't want to stop. I didn't used to be that way. I used to dread it, but that's before I changed my way of thinking. So these are extraordinary times, and in extraordinary times, our brain does extraordinary things. And it is supposed to. Mother Nature wired you and me for survival. And one of the things she baked in is fear and anxiety in an emergency or in uncertainty. Your lizard brain or your amygdala, she plopped on top of the spine. It's at the base of the brain. And the lizard brain is what I'm going to call it. Is taking care of you and me all the time. So anxiety during the times we're living in now is very normal. However, we have to learn to use our anxiety and not let it use us. And again, that's what the micro chillers are all about. Because if you don't pay attention, if you're not mindful, your fear, your anxiety, and your stress will use you. And so everything I'm going to be talking about is how you can harness your anxiety and stress, use it as fuel, and make it work for you. This is what people who are in athletes have been doing for years. There was a case where one of the athletes at the Olympics told her coach, "You've got to help me get rid of this stress." And she said, "I've got these butterflies and I just can't function." He said, "You don't want to get rid of the stress. You want to take those butterflies and make them fly in formation." And that's exactly what we need to be doing in times like this. The lizard brain is fast, it's quick, it's reactive, and it's supposed to be. I'll give you an extreme example. When I was 5 years old, I remember, I still have this memory. I'm writing a memoir that one day I'll finish. I was 5 years old in my sandbox, and I heard what I thought was someone calling my name, but what I remember was the snapping of mama's laundry on the clothesline and the swarming wasps in the eaves of the house. And then I heard my name again, and I realized it wasn't my imagination. And I ran inside, and my mom and our maid, and we had a maid, but we were not rich. We were very poor, really. The house was on fire. And there's a long story to this, but I want to give you the conclusion. My mom ran out of the house and left my 18-month-old sister in the middle of the living room floor. And she was never able to live that down. People humiliated her, and the neighbors thought she was a horrible person. I've always said, if I could go back in time, I would tell my mom, that was a natural thing for you to do, and I know you regret it. But when the lizard brain takes over, it throws your prefrontal cortex, and that's your executive part of the brain or your rational brain, offline. So we don't think in an emergency. We're not supposed to. That's what Mother Nature wanted. So you can fight or flee. So in an emergency, though, when we have uncertainty, and the lizard brain hates uncertainty, it's the uncertainty that scares the heck out of us. So I'm going to give you a quick and dirty micro chiller that I use all the time, because when things are happening, we don't know what's around the corner. Your brain, your lizard brain, is going to overestimate the threat and underestimate your ability to handle it. And I'm going to say that again. Your lizard brain will overestimate the threat, and it will underestimate your ability to handle it so you can survive. Most things we deal with, though, are not that dangerous. Now, the coronavirus is, and I know there's a double threat, not just with the virus, but also a lot of you have concerns about, your employment and keeping your stores open and so forth. So it's a reality. What happens, though, to the brain in times like this is what I call the zoom lens. And this is based on science. This is not my opinion. I just gave it the name of the zoom lens. That what happens is the lizard brain gets you ready for fight or flight. So your brain zeroes in on the threat and clouds out everything else. That's to prepare you. Not only is your mind doing that, but your eyes are dilating, your heart's beating faster. And the more you do that, the more your lizard brain gets activated. One of the tools that I recommend is to put on your wide angle lens. Again, think of a camera. Take that zoom, put it in the context of the wide angle lens. And there's a lot of things you can do with that, but what that does, it gives you a more balanced perspective of what's going on, whether you're dealing with this pandemic or it could be anything, any kind of threat. So the wide angle lens, one example would be to do the gratitude exercise. This is not putting your head in the sand, by the way. It's not pretending things are great when they're not. That's not what this is about. This is seeing the entire picture as opposed to a distortion of it, because your lizard brain, it's your friend, it's not your enemy, but it will err in the favor of threat when the threat is not as dangerous as it objectively might be. So using the wide angle lens is a way to get enlist your prefrontal cortex along with your lizard brain, so you have the balance of both worlds. So I always think of two tracks. One track is the internal track, and that's what's going on the inside of me. And that's really the overarching track. But the other track is what's going on outside of me, and what are things out here that I can do? What can I control? What can I not control? How can I change the circumstances of my life? There was a man by the name of Viktor Frankl that many of you might be aware of. He wrote a great book called Man's Search for Meaning. It reads like a novel, and this was during World War II, and he was writing about his experiences in Dachau and Auschwitz. He was separated from his wife, and in the throes of being confined by the Nazis, in dire circumstances, he said to himself, and this was the inner part, having more power over the outer part, is the Nazis can take everything from me. They can take my food, my clothes, my wife. They can take everything, but they can never take my will. And that is a powerful, powerful statement, and it's how he survived. In some ways, we can't control a pandemic. None of us can. But actually, there are things we can do. And part of social distancing and part of some of the things you guys have been doing, curb drop-off books and all the ingenious ideas that people have been coming up with to deal with it, that's a form of control. Anything you can control within what you can't control gives you power, and it makes you feel powerful. A friend of mine the other day told me when she heard about the coronavirus, when it first was looming, she got down on her hands and knees and started cleaning her kitchen floor. And she said it wasn't even dirty, but it made her feel good because she could do something. I was at a Starbucks drive-through recently, and when I paid the cashier for my double latte, she said the woman in front of me had already paid for my order, which made me feel great. And so I said, well, I want to pay for the person behind me. And I felt a double shot of endorphins as a result of that. So doing things for other people is something we can do. It doesn't have to be huge or elaborate. It can be very simple, or even doing something for ourselves. I'm going to give you another micro chiller. I know sometimes writing down your emotions, Linda Marie and I were talking about this, and getting them out of your head and on paper can help, because it's kind of a release. And there's something I've developed called tall comings. Now, you won't find tall comings in Webster's, but you will find shortcomings. And we all know what those are, because the way our brain is wired is we're 3 times more likely to focus on negativity. And it takes 3 positive things to offset 1 negative. So if you were to make a list of some of your tall comings, and throw modesty out the window, again, it's going to make you feel good. And it's honest. It also gives you, again, back to the balanced perspective. When I talk about balance, I don't talk just about work-life balance, but about balanced thinking. And mindful productivity and balanced thinking comes from being able to acknowledge your shortcomings, but balance that out with your tall comings. That's something I would encourage each of you to do right now, is think of one. I'm going to ask Linda Marie to respond to this, but everybody who's watching, think of at least 1 tall coming and throw your modesty out the window. And I'm putting you on the spot, Linda Marie. What's one of yours, or 2 of yours, if you?
I love to create gatherings for people. I love to create connections between people.
Okay. Good.
Mm.
You have another
I love
one?
this exercise, by the way. I've done it before, where I did a list of my tall comings.
Yeah.
And I don't usually think that way. And I loved doing that when I was using your book, #chill.
Right, right. We're inclined, scientists call this the negativity bias. We're hardwired with the negativity bias. And what that means is, if you're driving on an interstate and cars are zooming past you at 80 miles an hour, you're not going to just I hope you're not going to just let your mind go over to the blooming azaleas on the side, even though you might want to, because you're going to be roadkill. But you're going to stay focused on the threat. And when you're walking in a dark parking garage, you're, I hope, going to be, I know I am, I'm aware of this more now than ever before, even before the coronavirus, that I'm paying attention to what's around me. That's my lizard brain, and it's doing this, and it's taking care of me. It's my friend. It's not my enemy, even though I know it can feel unpleasant. Don't ever think your anxiety is your enemy, because it isn't. But we have to use it and not let it use us, and that's what this is all about. There's another by the way, you'll notice when you do this exercise with the tall comings and shortcomings, your shortcomings list is going to be much longer. It's going to be much more spontaneous. That's the lizard brain at work. But the whole idea of offsetting it is basically a form of disciplining your brain to start looking at the bigger picture so that you'll start to notice more positives about yourself. I just wanted to add that in. There's another quickie called HALT that can kind of make you aware of when you need to slow down and take care of yourself. Self-compassion is another whole dimension to all of this, and I would like to talk about that in one of the later sessions, the importance of self-compassion for mental and physical health. But HALT stands for hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. And when you have that kind of filed away in the back of your mind, you're more apt to be mindful when you're in that state. And if you're hungry, eat a snack. If you're angry, calm yourself down. If you're lonely, call somebody or FaceTime somebody. And if you're tired, rest. The solutions are fairly simple, but sometimes we don't see the water we're swimming in and we just keep pushing through those things. And that's a mistake, because that is going to cause us to act out or snap at somebody, especially now that more of us are in closed, confined spaces. We really want to make sure we're taking care of ourselves so we can function more as a family and as friends. There's one more chiller micro chiller I'd like to share with you, and it's what I call make a to-be list. This is similar to the tall comings, except that, you know, many of us have to-do lists of all the things we need to do. And how many of us have a to-be list of ways in which we want to just be in the moment? An example of a to-be list for me would be, I live here in Asheville, North Carolina, on the side of a mountain, and I'm fortunate enough, especially during these times, to have an incredible view of the Blue Ridge Mountains and sunsets and the city of Asheville down below. And I have never taken that for granted. And I will often sit and just enjoy that view. And I'm not really thinking about anything else. I'm just immersing myself into nature. I can do that from inside, and I can do it from the outside. Now, that's just an example. I'm not suggesting that everybody has to have a view in order to do that, but think of ways you can be present in the moment. Linda Marie had mentioned earlier when we did the first exercise, one of the reasons that her body felt calmer, and mine did too, is because we're in the present moment and you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind in a good way, not a bad way. When we're in the lizard brain, we're either agonizing about the past. I bet every one of you could think of a time when somebody did you wrong 10 years ago. And if you ruminate on that enough, you're going to start to feel your heartbeat. You're going to start to get pissed off, and it's all going to come flooding back to you. Or you can project in the future for something uncertain that hadn't happened yet. And it could be a presentation you're doing. It could be a challenge that you have with a spouse or with a friend. And you're in your head. But when you do these exercises, you're not in your head. You're in your body. You're in a different place, in a different felt sense. And the more you practice these, here's the beauty of the micro chillers. It's not a one-time deal. If you practice them regularly for 5 minutes a day, over time, they widen what we call your resilience zone. That's the scientist's name for it. And so it'll get wider and wider and wider. So what you start to notice is after a while, gosh, I didn't react to that situation the way I normally would. I've had this experience. And it's like an aha moment that it builds up over time. So know that it's not just a one-shot deal, that we're talking about a sustainability for you to be able to deal with all kinds of things that your lizard brain perceives as a threat. So let's see, the to-be list. Can you think of something you'd put on your to-be list, Linda Marie?
I would also, I also enjoy sitting on my back deck and just looking at the woods. That's one of my favorite things to do. So is the to-be list just things that you do where you can just be in the moment? Is that what the
Yes.
purpose of them?
Right. Some of you may have heard that old saying, don't just do something, sit there. It's the reverse. And a lot of meditators will say that. Don't just do something, sit there. And that's being. Being can be not thinking, not ruminating, not worried about the future, regrets about the past, but watching the grass grow, and just being in the moment. And that's what meditation allows us to do. By the way, in the book, I also talk about the importance of nature. And there have been many studies done called nature bathing, and the importance of nature bathing to eliminate stress and to help us stay in our calm center. And the most recent one is the most intriguing one. And it's a professor, I forgot where he is, who found that he quantified the amount of time if you spend in nature a week, it will raise your endorphin level, it will keep you de-stressed, and you'll be happier. And that's 120 minutes a week. Now, it doesn't matter if you do it all at one time or if you do it in segments. It doesn't matter whether you're walking in nature or you're just sitting like I do on my deck, or like Linda Marie does, enjoying the woods. If you can even be, if you have a view from a window, and if for some reason you can't get outside, watching a squirrel climb a tree or birds build a nest, or watching the flowers bloom this time of year, those have an effect on your immune system and your mental health. 120 minutes a week, that's all it takes. Okay, so we're going to talk more about some of these things. I just wanted to bring up a few terms like the lizard brain, the negativity bias, and a lot of the techniques and the micro chillers are going to show you how to override the lizard brain and the negativity bias when it's appropriate. Sometimes it isn't. If your house is burning down or somebody's breaking into your house, you want it to go full force at lightning speed so you can survive. But otherwise, we want to be able to use our brain and our creativity during this time. And the lizard brain blocks out your creativity. You can't think and be creative if you're stuck in your lizard brain, if you're worried and you're ruminating. It eclipses the creativity. And that's not my opinion, that's all science. Everything I say is based on evidence from somewhere that I've picked up. Yes, Linda Marie.
We have 1 minute left. I didn't know if you had a 1 minute micro chill to end on.
I do. And Linda Marie has questions, and I know we won't probably get to them today. I'd like for all of you to write down questions, and the next time we'll have time for questions for anything I've said or any questions you have around maybe something I haven't said. And I'll tell you what we'll do. Since we only have 1 minute, do you have a second hand, Linda Marie, or should I refer to my girlfriend here?
Just go ahead and I will watch. I'll watch.
Okay. So I want you to try this again, just in case you weren't able to do it the first time. And we're going to go deeper into meditations later. For 1 minute, listen to as many different sounds as you can without trying to memorize. I don't want you to be in your brain. I want you just to open your awareness and notice whether it's your gurgling stomach or something inside you or around you, and just see how many you can identify. Okay, start. Okay, and then notice on the inside, just take your awareness on the inside and just notice your heart rate. See if your muscles are a little looser. I know I instinctively closed my eyes and felt I took a deep breath just automatically, wasn't even thinking. All right.
Thank you so much, Brian. That was really wonderful. And thank you everyone for coming, and I hope to see you next week.
Me too. Thank you all.